Joining me on the line now is the Director of Adults Health and Commissioning from the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. It's Hilary Hall. Good morning to you, Hilary. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Now, it's been a funny old year, hasn't it, this year, eh? It's been a funny old year coming towards its end. I guess if there are words which have been used most this year, those will probably be coronavirus or COVID-19. Strange old year. Now, Hilary, you are the Director of Adults Health and Commissioning for the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. What sort of services does your role cover and oversee?
So I guess you can tell from the title it's quite a broad role.
Yes.
A big part of it is adult social care, so that's the care and support we provide ourselves for people in the borough, but we also work with home care agencies and care homes as well. Mm-hmm. I think the other part of what I do is I work with health organisations, so GPs, CCGs, etc., so that we're looking at the broader picture of health and care needs for our residents. And then there are a few other services that come under me, like communications, strategy, performance, business systems. So as you can see, it's quite a broad role.
You're a busy lady, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly am. I think what that enables me to do is really get an overview of everything that we do, the resources that we have, mm-hmm. and then look at how we can join that together so that we're providing the best possible services in response to what residents need. But yes, it's a pretty broad role.
I mean, like, one thing a lot of people, I guess, overlook is that everybody has a finite budget, and that includes local authorities as well. I'm guessing it's therefore your responsibility to assess what's needed and how much of your budget allocation you can allocate around to each of the demands upon your services.
Yes, I mean that is so, but the primary focus for us is to be clear what people's needs are and how we can meet them. And we're always looking at different ways that we can do that. How can we work with different organisations, different groups to meet people's needs mm-hmm. and use our money in the best possible way? Yeah. So sometimes it's not always appropriate for us as a council for providing the services. They could be done in a different way and in a better way that actually helps residents more and more sustainably, really. Yeah. So it's a balancing act, I guess, but it's important that we are using our resources in the best possible way.
So just over a year ago, the first confirmed case of coronavirus was identified, and then this year it's moved over here as well as around the world. It's not just a UK problem, it is a global problem. This must have brought some challenges for you, Hilary, in your role. What would you say, looking back to the start of COVID-19, what were the challenges that you and your team faced?
I think our top priority was looking after the most vulnerable in our communities. Yeah. Not just those people that we already knew about, but actually other people that became vulnerable as a result of COVID, particularly being the people, the so-called shielded, the ones that had to particularly through the first lockdown, stay at home. Mm-hmm. And whereas we would get to know people who need through GPs or other means, actually we were in a completely different situation. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we did, and I think it was amazing, was we just saw a great upsurge of community groups just forming around in their communities to support their neighbours, and they were a really good mechanism for us to work with them to support vulnerable residents. So we set up a hub where we could coordinate people's requests for help. We had over 750 residents signed up to volunteer. Wow. And we were able to help support nearly 3,000 people who were shielding. And what we did was put in place through redeployed staff in the council, but also the community groups, was a process of just phoning people up, checking they were okay. Did they need help? Did they need support? So we did a sort of proactive thing as well as reacting to people then contacting us because they had needs. But we had to change the way we worked to accommodate that, and absolutely right that we did.
I mean, obviously 3,000 people shielding within one borough does seem a quite high number. You often just sit here and you don't think about that. But obviously, as the local authority, I guess it's your job to be supporting these 3,000 people. And that's quite a mammoth challenge that let's be honest, this time last year you would not have been expecting to do this year, would you? So it's been a challenging year for you. And as you say, it's not just obviously the vulnerable that you were already aware of. COVID highlighted other people who would normally lead normal lives, but due to underlying health conditions that may not have made them in need of any additional care, all of a sudden they were. So you've had to get to know who they are, get to know what their needs are. All that whilst obviously your own working practices have been incredibly disrupted, I guess is the word, by coronavirus and the need for social distancing and everything. Yes,
and I think what's been amazing is the way that both our council staff but also communities generally have just adapted, have just picked up the mantle of needing to do things differently, and have just got on and done it.
Yeah.
We had some great stories of staff that normally did, weren't necessarily working directly on the front line with residents in their normal job, actually picking up the phone, getting involved, wanting to, going out of their way to provide support to residents in a very person-centred way. And it's just amazing. You can't begin to describe the way in which people have just picked up the mantle and done it. And a lot of those community groups that just set themselves up are still there.
Yeah.
They're still operating. They still want to be part of communities and drive and work with their communities. And I think that's great as well. I think that's a huge legacy to take forward as we move into whatever the future brings and all the rest of it. But we'll still need that support within communities, because that's actually really important, and that's where we can really be supporting people and recognising needs early on, so that we're not reacting in a crisis. We're actually being able to do things much earlier on and to support people. And we know that the challenge now is that financially, particularly, many people are struggling, and the need now is less around necessary shopping and that sort of thing, whilst that's still there. It's more around support around finance, health, education, that kind of thing is where we're now seeing that we're needing to move towards.
Yeah. Now, we're 9 months on from... we're 5 days shy of 9 months on from the first lockdown being announced. Obviously, before that, we had everything, the washing hands and the social distancing. Over the course of the 10 months since coronavirus became prevalent around here, how have things changed for you? I mean, you just mentioned there, obviously, initially it was shopping, wasn't it? Because shielded people needed shopping. Now it's more financial as well, as people are feeling the pinch of perhaps being made redundant, sadly, or being furloughed. Has anything else changed over the course of the year for you?
I think what we're seeing is that people have certainly adapted to living with COVID restrictions. So, many of the 3,000 that were initially in that lockdown, when we went into our sort of second lockdown in November, many of those that were shielding, we had far fewer requests for help.
Yeah.
And I think that's mainly because people have, found new ways to live with what they need to live with, which, just shows the adaptability of people, really, doesn't it? But as you say, I think the challenge now is much more around equipping people financially to be able to move forward in terms of recovery.
Yeah.
So, the kind of that immediate crisis piece where you're dealing with it is one thing, whereas as we now move forward and, actually we're looking at long-term sustainability, long-term lives, actually it's a different, we're moving, I think, into a different phase, and that's where some of the help, the support that we as a local authority can either signpost to or provide is really important.
Now, obviously, on Asian Star Radio, we cover quite a wide ranging area. And the question I'm about to ask you now is obviously specific to the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead and its residents. But what kind of help? Because obviously every council up and down the country will be doing something of their own. But what kind of help can you, as the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead Authority, provide to the local residents coming under your area?
So I think there's a range of things, and I would preface all of this by encouraging your listeners to go to our website, to go to the website and the pages that we've got on there. But if I can just touch on a few things.
Yep.
So lots of health advice. What's really important is that people look after themselves. And I know that sounds a bit weird to be saying it, but actually looking after yourself is really important. So we're posting lots of social media messages about that. We're also sending messages out in our newsletter, which again people can sign up to on the website.
I don't mean to interrupt, but in terms of looking after yourself, you're talking both physically and mentally, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And happy for you to interrupt me. Yes, that physical and mental health is so important. Particularly, we're all living in winter. It's dark at night. You know what I mean? It's really important that you look after both your physical and mental health. And we've got lots of information that we're posting out on social media, that we're linking with our health colleagues to really promote that. We're doing. We've got a COVID-19 winter support scheme, which is designed to help households deal with financial challenges, and particularly households with children eligible for free school meals.
Yep.
And again, we've got that available. People that are employed or self-employed can apply online for funding if they're having to self-isolate under the test and trace scheme. And we've also got our local test and trace calls that we're doing locally with our own volunteers. And again, if residents are contacted, they can talk to those people about any additional support they might need.
Yeah.
And we're still continuing with the number that we had freely available for our volunteering hub, if you like, where people can call that number during our opening hours if they need help with shopping, with prescriptions, all of that things, or they just need a friendly voice to speak to.
Yeah.
That number is still available, and there are people still continuing to man that, and we felt that was important to keep that support going. And the other thing, final thing I guess I'd mention is that we've got a list of business grants available and how to apply for them so that we can support local businesses. And obviously, as we're now going into Tier 3, that will become even more important going forward.
I'll come on to Tier 3 in a moment. Winter is a tricky period. I will say this. Winter is a tricky period for a lot of people. It's dark. It can be miserable. And obviously coronavirus is maybe exacerbating that. So please, as Hilary's just said, look after yourself both physically and mentally. After all that you've said, Hilary, this may be a cheeky question. Do you have plans for extending the work that you're doing? I mean, that does seem really cheeky after everything you've said you're already doing, but are there plans in place as we move to 2021 and hopefully some form of recovery from the grip of this pandemic? Are there plans for extending the community work that you have undertaken?
Yes, there are, and because I think it's been so great, it's been so worthwhile, it's been so beneficial that it's really worth that investment. So we're working with Berkshire Community Foundation to reach more community groups and provide whatever support we can there. We're developing a program with community groups to help them to be more resilient, to kind of build a resilience into their groups as well, so that not just COVID-19, but as they go forward, they can be they can meet any challenges really.
Yeah.
And just I think working with community groups, really understanding what communities need and want, and what individual residents need and want is really at the heart of what we're doing, because that helps us to tailor the services that we're providing, helps us to understand actually are there services that we don't currently have that we need to put in place.
Yeah.
So actually that extension of the work is really fundamental and key for me to the way in which we want to work going forward, and really understanding on the ground what it is that our residents need and want.
Yesterday, the announcement that no resident of the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead wanted to hear was made, and that is that the entire of Berkshire moves to Tier 3. Now, previously, Slough had been kind of isolated in Tier 3, but sadly, the entire of Berkshire has now moved to a Tier 3, and that will be effective as of a minute past midnight this Saturday, tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, 19th of December, Windsor and Maidenhead, along with the rest of Berkshire, moves to Tier 3. That obviously makes quite an impact because the regulations between Tiers 2, where Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead has come from, and Tier 3 are very, very different, aren't they, Hilary? And I wonder if you could just outline, obviously, people who are listening in Slough will already be well aware of this, I'd hope, but for people in Windsor and Maidenhead, today they live under Tier 2, from tomorrow they're under Tier 3. Can you just outline the differences and the do's and don'ts of Tier 3?
Yes, and I'm happy to, and it is a significant step moving up to Tier 3, and the next few weeks are critical. We know that we've got significant community transmission across the borough, and it's fair to say we anticipate there'll be a rise in cases, as a result of the sort of festive bubble. I think so. Tier 3 means that, in simple terms, you can't mix with other households indoors, and we know that the home is still the number one place where people are likely to catch COVID-19. I know that sounds weird, but it is.
Sorry again to interrupt. Obviously, in terms of households, we are talking the actual four walls and the roof that you live under is a household. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's your family and they live 2 doors away. They are not your household. Your household are the confines of the four walls within which you live. That's true. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Carry on then. Sorry for interrupting.
No. And I think it's really important that, because obviously there's some relaxation over Christmas. It's really important that people use their judgment about the number of people they see and the time that they spend with them. So just to kind of, in simple terms, you shouldn't mix with other households indoors. Only meet other people outdoors in open public spaces, and again in that groups of up to 6. Yeah,
and children are included in that, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. So reduce the number of journeys that you make and try to avoid travelling outside the area unless you absolutely need to. Mm-hmm. Where people are working, to work from home if possible, and obviously where that isn't possible, we understand that, but there's a real incentive or real drive for people to work from home if they can. And obviously the full details of all the restrictions are on the gov.uk website. Yeah. But those are the kind of key messages that are the restrictions, the more restrictions under Tier 3.
Yeah, as someone that lives in Slough, I would say welcome to the club, but it's not really a pleasant welcome, is it, at all? No. Obviously, it remains with us, doesn't it? Coronavirus spreads among us. It remains with us to do everything we can to minimise the risk of spread. Not just over Christmas, because obviously there is, as you mentioned, the relaxation of the rules slightly over Christmas, but it does remain with us moving forward from tomorrow for the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead when Tier 3 starts, moving forward into 2021 to drive down those numbers as the vaccine continues to be rolled out. It's nowhere near effective yet in providing a herd immunity, so we need to be alert and we need to be thinking of minimising those transmission risks, obviously, as we move forward into 2021. That's a fair point, would you say, Hilary?
Absolutely, and I think the real key thing is, and it's the real simple message around hand-face space. Yeah. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, and keep that distance even when you're indoors, because that's really important. It's not just about outdoors, it's also indoors as well. Yeah.
Hilary, this has probably not been the 2020 that you ever thought it was going to be when you were sitting this time last year looking forward to the year, but on behalf of the residents of Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead who've all benefited from the amazing job that you've done from the last 20 minutes we've spoken, it's been an amazing job. Thank you so much. Do you get any time off at all over the holiday period?
I am intending to take some time off.
Well, enjoy it, because I bet this has been a busy year for you. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much. I will.
Thank you for your time today, Hilary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
There you go. Talking about coronavirus, that's Hilary Hall, the Director of Arts, Health and Commissioning at the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. It's 9:30.
The latest news, information, weather and traffic and travel on the Asian Star 101.6 FM Breakfast Show.